Yes.
Yeah.
The regular virtual meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, August 3rd, 2020. The time is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Here.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Rollins,
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Here.
Commissioner Wright. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda?
Fuck happened.
Okay, hearing none, it's time for public requests. Brianne, do we have any, did anyone send any requests, or do we have anybody calling in?
I have no emails. If anybody does want to speak during public requests, you can do a *9 on your phone to raise your hand, and we'll get you in here. Just scrolling through to make sure I don't see anybody. Oh, I see. Hold on, I have a hand raised. Phone number ending in 9508. You gotta unmute them.
Oh, yes, this is Robert Duke. Hello, yes, this is Robert Ducate.
Robert, give your full address, please.
5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace, Boca Raton, 33487.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody. Glad to see that everybody is healthy and staying healthy in this trying time. I also want to thank Brianne for the spreadsheet on the forecasted for the cash flow with the budget forecast for the next few years. Although I can tell you it was certainly disheartening to see the sufficient funds for the golf course probably wouldn't be there for 5 years to get started on the golf course. And in the meantime, it looks like that the Beach and Park District continues to spend a lot of money on non-Beach and Park District properties. I just wanted to find out what is the plan for the golf course. If you're going to build it, are you going to borrow more money from third parties, pay off the city? What is the plan? Because 5 years, I can expect that the city is not going to wait 5 years to close their golf course. So we're going to have no golf course at all for some period of time. So I appreciate finding out what's going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Brianne, you can address that during your executive director comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I don't see any other hands raised right now.
Okay.
I do see Barbara Chaffee, or Harold Chaffee. Are you interested in speaking? Because you're unmuted. Okay. There's no others.
Okay, public requests are now closed. It is now time for the approval of the minutes of the regular virtual meeting that was held on July 20th, 2020. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Commissioner Wright. Is there any discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes,
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
thank you. Your motion passes. The first item on our regular business is the budget discussion found on page 18. Brianne, would you like to start us off, please?
Yes. Commissioners, tonight, starting on page 18 in your agenda packets is a discussion on the budget. And the focus of tonight's discussion is really on CIP, which Mr. Ducate talked about briefly. Is one of those topics is the golf course. But first I wanted to talk about the city CIP and their request for funding for next year. I've listed all the projects, and on page 18 you can see the letter. My personal recommendation is that we move the Recreation Services Master Plan and the vehicles to a reserve fund, and when they're ready to do those projects, we can evaluate them at that point. The rest of the projects, I think we need to commit the funding so that they can get continue moving forward on them. As far as the pipes and pumping, we did get one letter on Friday that they're going to rebid that project. So hopefully it'll start next year if the bids come in the way we anticipate they will come in under budget. So I want to go through these projects and just talk about them and see if we're still all on board with the city CIP to start.
Okay.
Are there any questions about these projects or any of the recommendations for the city CIP?
Why don't you go through them, please?
Okay. The tower and ramping is 1.1 is the budget for next year. We are going to get funding from the Friends. They've been fundraising for this project for over a year now, and we have a large donor. So we've already taken $250,000 that will carry over. There will be some overage, and I know that the Friends, I talked to John Holloway this morning, and they're still raising for that project, and they'll continue to do that. But right now the ramps and tower project is estimated to be 1.1. There was a meeting on that project. The district was not invited to that meeting, so I don't have much of an update other than what I received from the city on it. But I think that they definitely sought input from the Friends as far as what they'd like and the donor as well. The pipes and pumping project is just going to be a carryover of the 3.222 that we committed this year. We'll carry that to next fiscal year and continue with that commitment for the pipes and pumping. Gumbo Limbo Master Plan is how it's listed, but it's really renovations. It was originally listed as 1.055, $1,055,000. It's actually $955,000 from us, and that's our contribution, and that's for roofing and AC and repair work at Gumbo Limbo to keep the building operational and maintained. We have Red Reef South Restroom at $200,000, the Boca Inlet and Jetties at $25,000. The Recreation Services Master Plan is a continuation of the needs assessment, which isn't done yet, and that's why I suggested we just either not fund that or wait until we have the needs assessment back satisfactory before we continue funding that. Lifeguard tower replacements, 11.4, renourishment projects are 44, irrigation and pump rehab is 125, IT services, and then vehicles for 207. My recommendation is that we do the Recreation Services Master Plan and the vehicles in a reserve fund, and as they prepare to purchase them, the city can send us some CIP forms and we'll evaluate them each as it comes up.
What's the irrigation and pump rehab for?
In your budget book, it's at various parks. They're just rehabilitating and renovating the pumps.
Okay,
and
so in general, not
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, this is Bob Rollins on the Gumbo Limbo renovations. The 955, is that a firm number or is that the top end, or is this just a speculative number as to how much they're going to cost to spend to do the renovations?
Well, some of it, and again, this was the numbers that the city has given us as far as what they're going to need. I think that those are firm numbers, that they've evaluated the roof already and the AC replacement. We did commit some of that money, but it's just going to be carried over to next year too.
Okay, you know.
But if we commit this, we're just committing that amount, not anything over that.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I mean, sometimes these things have a little bit of creep in them, and I want to be sure that you know, we know where we are with the 955. I'm comfortable with that number because I know it sorely needs those renovations, but I'm certainly not interested in seeing that number get any higher.
Correct.
And on the Red Reef South restrooms, we put that off last year, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Has anybody gone over there to look at them to see what the urgency is of that?
Yeah, we did. We committed to doing it. It definitely needs some renovations at this point.
Okay.
We put it off. It was something that could wait. It was 2 fiscal years ago, and next year they'll get it done for $200,000. And have
It
them.
does need it.
Yeah.
I've been over there.
Okay.
I don't see the new maintenance facility for the city.
Those were not in their requests.
I'm sorry?
That was not in any of the CIP requests. These are just requests that they sent to us in their budget that we've evaluated. They were not in the request this year.
Okay, I thought that was high on their list of priorities. That's why I brought it up. But if it's not, it's not.
It's not on our lines. It's the city's lines.
Madam Chairman, if it's appropriate to make a motion at this point, I would like to make the motion that we defer to reserve fund the $50,000 for the Recreation Services Master Plan and the $207,300 for the vehicles. And that would be available there for the city to ask for when they're purchasing the vehicles.
Do I hear a
Okay.
second? Mr.
I'll make
Engel?
a second. Or Steve.
Or Aaron.
Is there any other discussion on Commissioner Rollins' motion?
I'm good with Commissioner Rollins' motion, but can I ask a question about the Boca Inlet and jetties? It's 25,000 for that. Is
Yes.
that under an ILA or what exactly is that?
We've committed over the course of time, 15% and upwards on those projects. So it's something that we've been doing for a very long time. As far as an ILA, I don't know that it's concrete in an ILA, but it's something that we've done for a long term.
I thought we only committed to the
Beach
beach.
renourishment.
So but is it, are we, my question really is, that, I mean, the 25,000 itself doesn't seem like much,
Right.
but is it possible that they would come to us in the future with another bigger number for something else? And
Every year.
why, so how much is it every year then? What's the history of that one?
I don't have the past history. I can, in the budget books, it lists out 5 years of projects.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
so,
I'm just, the reason look, here's my thoughts on the capital stuff is that we need to hold our end of the bargain on things with the city, things that we've committed to, but things that we commit to also should be under agreement. And the things that we commit to under agreement with the city really need to be not percents, but caps at things that we will contribute to. And just an agreement is something that is good because we all agree to what we're going to do. Just like we found out with the golf course, you know, so we have a big endeavor, to Mr. Duquette's point, and I'm very concerned about fulfilling our obligation to the community and a commitment to that and making sure that we're capable of committing to do it. So everything that we do here on the small part really needs to be tight. and when we get to, and Brianne and I spoke earlier about our own, district capital things, but we really have to be careful with it. So I would kind of throw that Boca Inlet and jetties one into the same bucket as let the city come and ask us for it.
Okay.
Yeah, Brianne, this is Bob. I thought that portion of the inlet was thrown in with the ILA when we did the beach renourishment. I could be mistaken.
Well,
We agreed. At one time,
yeah,
we
it
just,
is.
at
It
one
is-
time
it-
we were, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's thrown in that agreement in there, but the percentage is just, it's less than the 50% on some of those projects that we paid in the past.
Okay, well, I just want to check that because when
That makes sense.
we agreed to that, and I've been thinking about, that really wasn't really our responsibility in the first place. But it is important to have good access through that inlet. But if we're paying, is that for the dredging? Is that what that's for? Keeping the inlet open?
Project, yes.
Okay, well, I'm like Craig. I'd certainly, we should have some way to cap that. And if we don't have an ILA specifically, or if we do, then let's try to get that amended so we're not continually having to raise the stakes on that.
Commissioner Rollins, would you like to amend your motion then?
I'll be happy to amend the motion to include the Boca Inlet and Jetties $25,000 in the reserve fund.
And I'll second as amended.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Wright, did you have something else to say?
No, that's it.
Just one last question, and I'm good with that proposed going forward, but just note to self is that we're committing ourselves $955 which is $1 million investment into Gumbo Limbo. And it's not master plan, but it is to buildings and roof and things that are needed and necessary at Gumbo Limbo. What that also tells me is this is Gumbo Limbo. We're investing $1 million in it, and we're not tearing it down in 2 years or 5 years. So this is what we are investing in it, and we're going along with the $3.2 million for the pump replacement. It may be something different after it's rebid, but the structure of the pump replacement should be for the facility it is currently serving, not something beyond that. Is that correct?
That's our understanding, Commissioner Ernst.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion items going along with this motion that has been seconded?
It's 282,300 going into a reserve fund, just for the record.
Okay.
For what?
Between
Stuff
the
we put aside from there that we said no
Oh,
to.
okay. Yep, those items. Yep, I got the edited.
Joanne, would you do the roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes,
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes,
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes,
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
thank you. Brianne, do you have anything else?
Is there a consensus to commit the funds? The remaining amount is 5,867,750. Is there a consensus to go ahead and commit funding to those projects?
Yes.
yeah.
yes,
We're good with it. Commissioner Wright, are you good with it?
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
What's next, Brianne?
Now we have the district CIP. These are district managed projects. First one is the Patch Park batting cages, which is part of an ongoing project. And this would finalize the batting cages at our parks for 115,000. And the sports groups, both the city and the sports groups are proponents of getting this done.
Okay.
We have, I'll just go through the whole list and then we can talk about have questions, I guess. Sugar Sand Park asphalt resurfacing is 150,000, and Melissa put together some photos of some of the issues and the tree rooting that's taking place, causing some trip hazards out there. We've been doing some resurfacing projects at our parks just to keep up with that. We have the Swim and Racket Center deck paving repairs, and that will include the pump room paving that was in the city's budget. We've taken that out of there and just put it into this project. And then she also included some photos of the deck issues around the pool. And that would prevent long-term damage both to the interior of the pool as well as just around the pool. There's also the geothermal system at the Swim and Racket Center here to be replaced for 90,000. And then another project is the restroom flooring for 15,000. And the issue in there is just ongoing slip, and they have mats in there to prevent people from slipping. But one of the things that we've talked about just for the future of the building is to get rid of the mats and replace the flooring with a better flooring. What they did in the hallways here is not enough for the restrooms because they're constantly wet. So that's also listed in there. So those are the projects, the small dollar projects. And then we have, of course, Ocean Strand carrying over. Beach renourishment, we're gonna sink another 300,000 in there. And then we have allocated 5 million for the golf course and 250,000 in an operational fund, which would just be set up so that when we do actually get to open the golf course, we would have a fund set up already to help start that course.
On the asphalt resurfacing, how often does that have to be done?
On the asphalt resurfacing, I'm gonna actually, are you unmuted? Okay. No. I'm gonna have Melissa answer some of your questions on our projects. She's on the phone.
Yeah, Susie, the asphalt at Sugar Sand Park is really a root intrusion issue that causes trip hazards. It's been there. They're not really expanding. We addressed some of it at the Patch Reef Park and some at Sugar Sand Park this year. So the plan I was planning to do is to finish out Sugar Sand Park this year and finish out Patch Reef Park next year. As far as how long it lasts, for this particular instance, it's not because of infrastructure and it degrading. It's because of actual root intrusion. So it depends. This is the first time it's been done. My understanding is since the park opened.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for Melissa or for Brianne?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible for us to allocate some portion of money from the golf course towards pickleball? And the reason I say that is because, you know, we really don't know when and where the golf course is until we get an answer from the city. We're all optimistic.
Brianne has some information for you, Commissioner Ernst.
Okay. Well, let me rephrase it then. Can we allocate some money for pickleball? And I do think that given the COVID environment that we can't use as much inside courts, we need to facilitate outdoor courts. And in the outdoor court space, you know, it is everything that we have been told by our friends in the pickleball, it's not just for elderly people, it's for young people, and the sport is growing so rapidly. I think we need to accommodate it as best we can at different areas. So in those areas, I see is at least 1 or 2 courts over at Pat Treef, and possibly the roller rink over at Sugar Sand. And they should come with some kind of shade structure, so it is something, it can be played at multiple times during the day. And I think it has to be further research.
Over at El Rio at all. I mean, there's no shade structure at El Rio. It would be, as far as, you know, people sitting on the sidelines, yes, I agree with you there, but you can't have shade structure over a court.
You can, actually you can with the court. It's different than tennis. It's a higher structure that you could do with the mesh nets, and that can be explored. Pickleball is different than a typical tennis game, is my point.
I understand. I went over and looked at the El Rio facility. And it was full on one day and there was nobody on it another day. So it just depends on the time of day. But Brianne, why don't you explain to Commissioner Ernst and the other commissioners what you've uncovered here for us?
I can't take all the credit because I had Melissa working all weekend on different ideas for pickleball. I think Commissioner Ernst has a really good idea to build something large scale like at the roller hockey rink, but that's something that would take more time and money. We can, for about $600, we can get 2 pickleball courts opened up at Pat Treef probably within a couple weeks and see how they go as far as booking. They'll basically reserve them the same way they reserve a tennis court. I spoke to Michelle Grau. She's a big advocate of tennis, and she's been to our meetings before when we've talked about Pat Treef Tennis Center. She's actually started playing pickleball a little bit too, and is very supportive of using Pat Treef Park facility to incorporate some pickleball courts. So the idea would be to take this, we just need about $600. We'll put 2 pickleball courts out within a couple weeks. We just have to order the materials. See how that goes. If they're getting booked and again, it's lit, they can play all night long there. Well, I mean, until the facility closes, but if it's a successful thing, then we have to look at expanding into more pickleball courts at Pat Treef.
When you say $600, you're taking 2, it's my understanding there is 2 tennis courts existing that are already lined for pickleball. You're going to do what with the $600?
2 tennis courts at Pat Treef that are lined for pickleball?
They're currently lined.
They're
not used there. I mean, it takes some confusion for the tennis players, but they do have lines on the court.
I think there's youth tennis lines on the courts. I don't believe there's pickleball lines on the courts. There are youth tennis lines on the courts closest to the entrance.
Okay. I think I had it as courts 3 and 4, but I may be mistaken. Someone told me that they were lined on there. So
yeah, well, and some people may be confusing them for pickleball courts, but there are youth lines that put down permanently on the tennis courts themselves.
Okay.
When she spoke to city staff today, they did not sound like they had any pickleball out there right now, but this is something we could do to try, and if it worked, then you would take those same 2 courts and then convert them. We would order the nets to separate and have 4 courts to reserve.
Is
and
it
then expand it?
Is it 3 pickleball courts per 1 tennis court or 2?
4 for 2.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you know, everybody wants to say you can put 4 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. The challenge we have there is our configuration is different. We do not have a straight square courts over there. You have the entrance in between the 2 tennis courts that come in, so you don't have a flush square. So we can't fit we can't fit the full 30 by 64 of those courts on one of our tennis courts. So we could get, if you want to, what they're going to want is for the courts to face north-south.
Okay.
So for north-south facing courts, you could put 2 pickleball courts on each tennis court.
So you have a total of 4 pickleball courts when you're done.
You would have 4 pickleball courts if we went permanent. Now, the proposal I was doing for $600 is just, there are some weights that we can get with an extra center strap and lower the tennis nets that are out there now, and we can tape down the pickleball courts and get it going quickly, 1 for 1. So 1 tennis and 1 pickleball. We can have that done that's the quickest thing we can get done, to have that done, say, within 2 weeks. Get it started up and then look to convert it into 4 pickleball courts over the 2 tennis courts beyond that.
I guess my look, I think we've heard enough from Raul and everyone else to make, 4 permanent pickleball courts over there that are lit and see how it goes. And, don't put good money after bad. Let's not waste the 600. Let's do it right and have it all done.
Let me ask a question.
Yep.
This is, from what I remember, when did the city have the development of Spanish River Phase 2? Because I know they had pickleball courts in that design. Was that supposed to be this coming fiscal year, or was that, am I imagining things? Anybody?
Brian?
I'm looking now in their CIP just to see what year it's on.
But I'm with Craig. Unless it's going to create a major problem over there with scheduling tennis and preventing
2022 for phase 2.
2022. All right. I would say that we should just go ahead and do the 4 courts unless there's a reason not to, and then so long as that doesn't impact negatively the folks that are playing tennis over there in leagues and so forth, can we get those things scheduled without any difficulty at all?
We'll work with the city on it, and we'll get it
Okay,
done.
I mean, I think we just do it. I like seeing Raul, but maybe we can get a little bit of a rest if we go ahead with that. And then in that length of time, perhaps the city will have the phase 2 done over at Spanish River.
Okay.
Did city staff have any issues with it, or they said there's room for it?
I think there's some concern about the noise with the tennis players. When I talked to Michelle Grau, she didn't think it would be a problem with the tennis players, and she was supportive of speaking to them out there. So we can do 2. We can do 2 to start and see how it goes for a month, and then we can do the other, just convert them into 4 if you guys want to start that way, or we just go all out with 4 and.
The city has the community center too. They can always convert a couple over there as well if they have tennis courts over there. So the East people would have pickleball.
They clay though over at Memorial?
It's clay at Memorial, yeah.
Yeah, you
I don't
can't
think
do it
that's,
with clay.
I don't think you
You
can
have
do
to
it
have
with
hard
clay.
surface.
All of them are clay?
Yeah, I think they all are now.
Yeah, let's. My recommendation is just make the 4 courts, pickleball courts, see how it goes. It's lit. It's something new. It shouldn't cost that much to do it, but do it right so people who play pickleball really enjoy it. There's no
And the fees
multi-lines.
the fees will be the same as booking a tennis court. They'll just pay for the 1.5-hour time frame. They rent it just like they rent a tennis court, and they'll do it through the facility there, and it'll just be kind of run the same way they would book a tennis facility.
Correct.
Could I
So
get a motion for this?
you have a budget, did you say? Or
A motion, please.
okay, can I ask what the budget would cost to do something like that?
Thank you, Craig.
Where's it going to come from?
Yeah, I mean, we could get it all done, really convert them. You want them to be painted instead of taped and everything.
Paint it, do them right. Do pickleball courts, and then we'll find out whether it works or not.
20,000.
How much?
20,000.
What?
What happened to the 600?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
That was for temporary.
Weight down and taping. That was a temporary thing. This is painting, ordering the nets, and doing it upright.
Okay, so I'll make the motion. I'm going to say up to 25,000. Convert 2 tennis courts at Patch Reef to pickleball courts, and I leave it to city and district staff to figure out which courts and timing and location and best pricing. Maybe they'll come in with something lower, but they'll give them a nice budget.
We're going to work to get that done now, so it would probably come out of this year's budget. So as far as this conversation about next year's CIP,
Okay.
it won't impact these numbers
I'll second that motion.
this year.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any other discussion, any other questions that you might have?
Well, my last question is pickleball, going back to Sugar Sand. You said it was too difficult, or you were in an exploratory phase for it?
Oh, we're in the exploratory phase. I was going to bring that up as one of the options. Is looking at converting that. We did look at participation in those. Right now, the roller hockey rink is used primarily by basketball and open play players. There's no pickleball use out there right now. They've offered it to pickleball players, but the surface, I guess, has been somewhat not helpful or useful. I think also just because they were using the indoor gymnasium so much, they didn't use the outside area. But we can certainly look at costs for that and find out what it would cost to convert that to a outdoor pickleball area.
But is it used for Boca hoops?
They do use it for a practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I know
important.
also, Craig, that there's a new sport called futsal, and I think that that's been used for futsal out there as well. So it's a multi-use facility playing basketball, futsal, and I've seen all sorts of play. I'd prefer keeping that open. Let's see how it goes over at Patch Reef with those 4 that we're going to build.
Okay, I agree with that. Does it need improvement though for multi-use just in general? How is the condition? You know, we should keep it in a Boca style. So for whether it's for hoops or futsal or even a multi-use pickleball, is it up to speed, up to par, I guess?
They haven't submitted anything that of major upkeep or needs to be done over there.
They just filled some cracks, and we talked about resurfacing it for this upcoming year, but they just filled some cracks and did some work, a little bit of work out there.
I definitely would look into, maybe Melissa, looking into just what repairs need to be done to make sure it's in good purposes for multi-use going forward, because clearly we can't come inside, so outside, if it's available, we need to make sure, this is a good time to make sure it's in good shape. I don't know.
Absolutely.
We do have a motion that has been seconded. Is there any other discussion? Joanne, would you do the roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes,
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes?
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Okay, Brianne, what's next?
Okay, getting back to the CIP for next year. Well, again, that money that you guys just approved for this, we will get started now and try to get that up and running before as soon as possible. Yes. For the district projects, we have $430,000 in projects. I guess tonight I'm looking to see if there's any projects you want us to reduce, take off. These are the recommendations to keep the facilities maintained. Looking to see where you guys want to go with these projects so we can put them in or take them out and move forward with that line.
How's the community center at Patch Reef doing?
Well, it's not open.
Right. But like the roof and the HVAC and all that.
Well, we approved some things this year. They made the repairs to that, to
The
the,
HVAC, but
Yeah.
to the roof as well?
I don't think there's been any roofing issues. I know there was talks about it leaking, but it's not leaking.
It's not. Okay.
at some point though, the Rutherford Center is going to have to be replaced because it's a pretty old facility. And I seem to remember from a few years back, there were some issues with appliances and suitability of the facility for use.
It's outdated for sure, and I'm sure there's things that we're going to probably need to do at our community centers in general. What those things will be, we don't have recommendations from staff yet as far as any changes that need to be made for whatever the future of indoor recreation looks like after this pandemic settles, if it does. But if you guys want to prioritize Patch Reef as a project to master plan, this is the time, like we can talk about setting aside funds for that for next year.
As long as it's doing okay right now, I mean.
The question would be how much, and we really don't know what's happening with the pandemic. I mean, this could be over in January, might not be over till June of next year. Does it pay for us to get involved in master planning now when we have, first of all, a budget that's kind of, as the expression goes, tighter than the head of a drum. And we don't know what the next year is going to bring. Maybe that's something we can defer till fiscal year 21, 22.
Yeah, this is Bob, Madam Chairman. I think the community center, it is meeting the current needs right now. I've been into several meetings over there in the old where we used to have our commission meetings, and then they have that one activity room. And I really think that there's really no need to start looking at a master plan with what we have with other projects on our plate. I mean, let's imagine that we get the approval on the golf course. That's going to take up a lot of our resources. And then I know there's some other projects that I think would probably come before Patch Reef, and that might be, you know, a maintenance facility at Spanish River Fields if Phase 2 gets done. So I'd like to just hold off on any further discussion as far as the community center at Patch Reef. We spent $4 million in upgrading the fields there. I think that was a major improvement for the community's needs, and I think the community center could probably be pushed off for a number of years.
Thank you, Bob. And also, we are going to do the batting cages over there too. So that will be an improvement and for the enjoyment of the players and the families.
Don't forget pickleball.
Of course.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking to redo Patch Reef, I mean, there's a number of things that would be considered, because I think the community center is probably is outdated for one, but I would suspect it probably should be in a different area combined with the tennis facility to make one community center for both the fields and the tennis. So, and I think that's down the road, but I think that would be the one improvement I think that would be beneficial to us, and it probably wouldn't cost as much as trying to do a tennis center and a community center. But I think we're well positioned right now for a while with facilities, especially since we can't have any meetings, you know, because of COVID. But I think deferring any further discussion on this until at least next year, we can talk about it, but I don't feel the need to be in a rush on it.
Sounds good. Brianne, do you have anything else for us?
Not on the Patch Reef, but I just, is there consensus that these projects are things that we can move forward with next year for the 430,000, those projects listed?
I think so.
I'd like to make a motion if necessary. Do you need a motion, Brianne?
It would solidify it so that we'll put it in the budget. And
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the district projects for the 2021 fiscal year, totaling $430,000, representing the batting cages, the asphalt resurfacing at Sugar Sand, deck paving at the Swim and Racket, geothermal system at Swim and Racket, and restroom flooring, totaling $430,000.
Thank you. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there any other discussion, commissioners?
No, it's just disappointing. We have to put 15,000 back into Swim and Racket with the restroom flooring, but I guess we have to do that anyway.
I agree with you, Erin.
Yeah.
It should have been done in the first place, but as a tripping hazard, having those mats, I think that we're looking at a recipe for disaster.
And slipping, yeah. Well, we know now next time we redo Swim and Racket.
I won't be alive.
Write that down, Erin.
Okay, Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, Brianne?
Okay, so I guess the next question is, do we want to commit the 5 million and allocate that, I guess, to the golf course next year? If you look at page 46, based upon these recommendations that we've talked about, if we do this with the 5 million, we're looking at a $1.6 million balance available for all these projects. And we're still going to work on some of the numbers with the operation and maintenance and some of those things, but overall, this is where we would be right now.
Plus our operating reserves of 2 million.
Plus the 2 million operating reserves, correct.
Okay.
For projects, we would have 1.6 left.
And you're saying that's with the 5 million going towards the golf course?
Correct, correct.
Madam Chairman, this is Bob Rollins. I don't see how we cannot go forward. We spent time on a phased-in plan to do the golf course. we put ourselves in a box with our ad valorem revenue last year. No way to get any tax relief this year, given the business environment and the COVID. But I think that, we have, just like with the fields at Patch Reef, where we redid those with sports turf, there was some fiscal concern doing that. But look how well that turned out. I don't know. We've done a good job over the years maintaining our property and still continue to do that. But I think we'll still have maintenance things that we'll take care of, but should have resources to do that. I think we'd look pretty foolish if we backed out of the golf course at this point.
We have a fiscal responsibility to the community because we took this project on initially, and we have invested a lot of taxpayer dollars into the design, into all the work that Price Fazio has done. We've reduced the costs significantly. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Wright, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw an idea out there to see if it's, just to discuss it, to see if it's even a possibility to do. I have no idea. It's just an idea. But we own the east side, right? We're waiting for approval for the west side. Would it be feasible to do a design build for the southeast corner where the driving range is? We already have our design, but we could take that design, put it in the design build RFP and say, give us bids for this with any changes you might think could be incorporated into, let's say, like family friendly or general resident type stuff, so that we would still be using our design, but to see how they could tweak it maybe, and then see what the actual bids come back at so that we could start this project next year with the money that we have.
Well,
Just an idea.
What are we going to do for irrigation? How are we going to get our irrigation if we don't have approval on the west side?
Okay, so supposedly I have talked to people who have said that we could actually tap into the canal without having to do the irrigation from the west side.
The question now is, will we eventually have to set up an irrigation system? I think that answer is yes. I don't know that we could perpetually tap into the canal.
Right, but what I'm saying is we could do it now for the east side to get it going, and then once the west side is done, either continue for the east side to continue the canal, and then do an irrigation system for the west side, on the west side.
Yeah. Do we have an idea as to how much tapping into the canal would run us?
I don't think it's extraordinary, but this is just an idea, and then whoever does the bid would find out that information and put it in the bid so that we could get a final tally on what it would cost. The information is available.
We're right at the cusp of getting approval for the design on the west portion of the course. If the letter or the comments from Mike Wika to Brienne will hold up, that he said that we should have something. Would you say, Brienne, was it September, October?
Yeah, it would be after summer, so it's hopeful.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could start the west course. Once we get that approval, we'll have the money to move forward. I just think we ought to stick to our plan of moving forward with the golf course rather than trying to, I think we're going to be looking at the same time frame, whether we build east or west, and I'd prefer going west to get the golf course done. And I don't know, that canal over there, that's part of the Lake Worth Drainage District, I guess. And so I'm not sure how reliable the water is in that canal, and how, what happens if we get into a dry spell and don't have any water in the canal at all. And I think that we stick to the plan, do in phases, and do phase one, which is on the west side, on the north of Clintmore.
Madam Chair?
The National Golf Foundation's recommendation was to do the west side first in order to get things up and running and more cost effective.
Right, understood. I was just throwing it out there because of what's happening with COVID to open green space for people as well as soon as possible. That would open it up to not only golfers, but people who don't necessarily always play 18 rounds of golf to get out on a short,
Uh-oh.
get out on
Wake you up.
a putting green and a driving range and possibly a walking trail if that's doable. And I know people keep throwing that back at me, but I think it's important to try to incorporate other things into this golf course, especially now. So it was just an idea, but you know, if you don't like the idea, you don't like the idea.
Madam Chair? may I
Yes.
speak?
Commissioner Ernst.
I support Aaron's idea to multi-use things, and I also support the idea of sorting through, east versus west. But I will point out that we did, at somewhat of earlier discussion a year ago, we talked about east versus west, and that's where we landed with the National Golf Foundation saying the west is the right place to start. But I think we may be getting too deep into the weeds. I think what Brianne is asking for is the motion for a commitment of $5 million for the golf course right now for next year's budget. I'm not confident that we've seen everything in writing and everything from the city and where they are with it. It sounds they're on a little bit slower track for approval. So there may be opportunity to do more together. But right now we should commit the $5 million for the golf course. And when we get to more definite information from the city, Aaron, I think there's opportunity to see, are we left with just our $5 million, or is the city actually going to contribute something, or is there going to be a change of plans, or they just signed off on our stuff and we're on our own?
Well, I mean, GL Homes is supposed to go through in October, right? So I still think we should continue pressuring them to contribute funds, especially once that deal goes through.
And I think there's some pressure for them to do it, but that comes with the partnership. It comes with some strings. But tonight's discussion really is: are we committed to the golf course for $5 million? And my answer is absolutely. We're committed $5 million to the golf course. That's what we have. But I do think that if we are going to lead a project on the golf course, it has to have very clear exit clauses so that we don't overcommit ourselves into something that we spend $5 million and we say, well, we need another $5 million to finish it, otherwise it doesn't open. We got to be very careful with the staging of the project and the implementation, with the mindset that our ad valorem taxes may not be the same as it is this year, next year. And so I'm very conscious of the fact that there's a lot of empty space over at Town Center. There's a lot of empty office buildings right now. So I don't think any of us want to raise taxes. We're under the assumption we're going to keep a very tight budget and we're going to be careful and prudent. So let's just approve the $5 million right now. We got a few more months to figure out where the city is and the commitment and the timing of it. Then we'll have that discussion, Aaron, of why we should maybe do the east versus west. But the last messaging I got was you better build the 18 holes first and do it pretty quickly because there's timing with the golfers.
And next, at our next meeting, Wayne will be giving us an update on what he and Charlie Putnam have been doing as far as getting things organized so that, once we do get approval, we can hit the ground running. So they're going to give us an update at the next meeting. We may have better information. And Aaron, I encourage you to call him and ask him about this because they have gone over every square inch of that property, and see if your idea or the other idea of using the canal for irrigation would be viable. Now, do I hear a motion to commit the $5 million to the golf course?
I'll make the motion.
I was going to say, Craig had the motion almost right there on the tip of his tongue, and I'll second the motion. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
I have one question. So are they actually working on golf course stuff though? Because I thought they weren't supposed to be working on it well. Or is it just organizing? We're not being charged for anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
They're organizing and just helping us out. They want to see this project go forward, and so they're just getting, you know, their ideas and their plans in order.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Are there any other comments for this motion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes,
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. What's next, Brianne? You're muted.
Sorry. That was all I had for tonight for the budget. What I want to do at the next meeting is finish up the O&M and some of our other things like the Red Reef Golf Course, the Meisner Bark, and get through those things and then finalize the budget for our first hearing.
Okay. So let's proceed to item number 2 of regular business, which is Ocean Strand.
Yes. As you guys know, some of you guys sat in on the opening of the bids. We had one bid for Ocean Strand come through from AmeriCorps Builders, which is somebody that's, I think all of us are pretty familiar with some of the work that they have done in our parks through their partners. I do have a couple of their representatives I know for sure on our call tonight listening, so if there's any questions you have. AmeriCorps Builders was the person who submitted. They submitted a design and build within our budget of $100,000. With one person who submitted, I think that we could move forward if we wanted to and set up our meeting for Wednesday night. We could post this proposal on our website and give the public an opportunity to read through it. And then at our August 11th scheduled meeting that we had, that would be an opportunity for the public to ask their questions. But I feel confident that AmeriCorps Builders is going to build exactly what we put out there for the RFP as far as the pedestrian park, that they could get it done. And I had, you know, it turned out we only got one person, but we got a really good submission. So,
Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions?
No, well, will they be able to do like a sketch, I guess, so people can see visually what it will be for the 11th?
Would
sure
you?
I mean, if we vote tonight to go ahead with the bid, would they be able to do that so that everybody can have feedback and stuff?
I'm sure they will, but let's see if we can get somebody on. Nate, are you able to speak on that? Hold on, I have to unmute you. Nate, are you able to speak on that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I am able to speak on that, but I need to defer to Carol because she'd be the one putting the plans together, the renderings.
All right, let me
She just texted me. Yes, we can.
oh, great. You're unmuted now too.
If we could just have the speakers identify themselves, please.
Sorry, Nate Custodio, AmeriCorps Builders.
Thank you.
And to answer your question about can we produce a rendering by the meeting? Yes, we will be able to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
One other component, I guess, Madam Chair, I guess I'd like to introduce on the Ocean Strand part of it. Is it possible for Ocean Strand to be not in a traditional dog park per se, but be dog park friendly, and maybe incorporate that into as they go through their process? And because it is not a traditional park in the sense that it has a big parking lot or anything like that. And there is a need for people just to be with their dogs outside, and it's an ideal area from that standpoint, and introduce the concept there as, you know, dog friendly as opposed to no dogs on leashes.
I agree with you. Yes.
We would just have to talk to the city because of the ordinance for recreation. The ordinance is that there's no dogs allowed in the parks, and that's a citywide ordinance. So we would just have to talk to them about, you know, some sort of variation for Ocean Strand.
could we set aside a small piece of Ocean Strand as a dog park? Is that possible?
Well, are you looking to have them unleashed, or are you just saying you want to be able to walk your dog through the park?
My thought was is that everyone, it's a walking park and that they should be able to allow to walk with their dogs on a leash. Now,
Right.
is someone going to take their leash off? Well, they should be responsible for their dogs. That's a different ballgame. I realize a Meisner Bark is a little different. It's more involved. Maybe that's a phase 2 of it. But for this first phase, let's make it dog friendly for walking paths. And it's a little different than El Rio. It goes with nature, and I just think it would be nice.
Yeah, let me
Agreed.
just add something, Madam Chairman. I'm a dog lover, and I love pets. But when my wife and I go walking in our neighborhood, you'd be surprised at the number of little blue bags I see along the sidewalk that people pick up after the dog, but then they don't take their dog droppings with them. Unless you're going to have an area where and I know probably most people with pets understand that responsibility, but the last thing I want to have is, kids running around an area where there's, dogs have free reign. And I just don't like the idea of having an open area where dogs are not confined. And I just think maybe this may not be the right place for this right now, as we're trying to open this up to pedestrians. Just my personal opinion.
I think if you have receptacles for people, though, they'll throw it away. I mean, I don't think we need a designated dog area. The dog beach is right there at Spanish River, open morning and night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm
sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah,
No, I was just going to say, I agree with Craig because it's really, really disappointing when you go to a park and it says no dogs allowed. You can't even walk with your dog on a leash. I think if we make it clear that the dog has to stay on the leash just for people to walk through the walking path, I think that makes our city so much more friendly.
I agree. But Bob, to your point, as we don't have to answer this question now, I would just say throw it into the mix for discussion with Carol and Nate when they come back with the visual proposal and we meet with the residents. Let the community decide what they want on it.
Well, I think first we have to look to the city to see if we can get a variance on this. So
agreed on the city ordinance.
Well, I think if we can I'd like to have their opinion too regarding that activity, because they may have some feelings about it as well as the zoning. So, if the and we could certainly give it a try. And if it's not working like it should, then maybe we have to take a different tack. But
I'll go pick up the poop for you, Bob.
Oh, well, no,
and I will DNA
it. Well, there is a truck I see driving around called the Pooper Scooper. So
yep, I seen it.
There is.
Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Horowitz, though. Jacob, what is our liability if there is an animal that isn't quite as friendly to another resident who's walking through there? Is it the same as if you were walking down the sidewalk in the city?
The answer is it could be, but by allowing it or encouraging it, then there's always the potential it would open us up to some risk. What I'd also want to do that I can't answer for us this evening is take a look at the city code to the extent that they have dogs running at large or leash requirements that may otherwise play a role in this discussion. So that there may be some other rules and regulations that we're not considering that would have some bearing on the outcome of this ultimate issue.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to go ahead and approve the bid that came in? That's something we have to do, right?
Yes, I second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote to approve and accept the design build from AmeriCorps Builders, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
I'd like to make it clear to the public that we still want your input. We may not be able to incorporate everything at this phase, but anything that you want to see, we will entertain at some point, if we go to phase 2 in the near future.
Oh, can I add one more thing? Also, I don't know if this is needed now, but for Carol and Nate, when we do the 11th, to make sure that we incorporate the community and the volunteers that we will have for that, because I know we met with Focus Save Our Beaches and they're very willing to put some manpower, if we can, at some point to it.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Also, I'd ask if our staff could please keep the city's recreation board fully involved, that they are aware of it. The Rotary Club, there's a lot of vested interest community participants who want to voluntarily help. And I think it will lead to a better park in the long run. This is just a starting point, but having community build the park is extremely important.
We will send this out to everybody now that you guys are voting on this, and we'll send it out as an update and give everybody a chance to come and participate.
Good. Looks like we're moving right along. Item number 3, the Ocean Breeze Golf Course ongoing maintenance and trash removal discussion, found on page 47 of your agenda packets. Brianne?
Thank you, Commissioner Vogelsang. This was really more of an informational discussion, I guess, to talk about some of the issues that we're having at the golf course. And part of this goes to, and I think where Commissioner Wright's coming from, is the frustration that it's not developed and it hasn't been developed, so it's becoming somewhat of a dumping ground. And I had Melissa put together a list of things that we've done in the last 2 months, just the last 2 months on this property. And you can see there's a lot of code compliance concerns that we've had to address and work that we've had to do just to avoid code issues. And I feel frustrated because I feel like it's happening more and more. Melissa's texting me on Saturday, somebody dumped a couch here. Somebody's got their fencing, they took their fencing down and they dragged it out on the golf course. And here we are having to, or really taxpayers are really having to pay for these people to get their trash taken away. And it's unfortunate because it takes away from our other parks and facilities. So I reached out to the city today to find out about the signage that they would prefer on their parks. I would like to go ahead and put out some very official, no dumping sort of signage out there, and put a phone number up for people to call and report it if they see it. We are also looking at getting companies and a list of companies together of people that can, whoever can come and haul this trash off. And I also want to send a letter to the HOAs, just letting them know that this is something that they need to also help enforce and push out to their residents, because I realize that it's not developed, but it's also not a dump. And it's becoming that, I guess, as people realize that it's just a vacant property, it's becoming somewhat of a dump behind the fencing. And so for informational purposes, I want to let you all know, because our expenses are up on this line. We budgeted $50,000 for the year for the maintenance of the golf course, and we're expecting to spend about $150,000 just on these various little issues. So it's a big increase, and it's a lot more expense than we thought. And I think when Commissioner Wright was talking about earlier, as far as developing something out there, I realize that we're waiting patiently for the city, and I hope that they will give some sort of approval sooner than later so that we can get something out there and developed for the residents, because it's, I think everybody's frustrated by it. And so my discussion tonight is basically to make sure you guys are aware that it's happening, make sure the public is aware that we're working to address it. And we also need the help of the HOAs in the area, and we're going to put some signage up and try to deter it as much as we can. And as long as I'm talking about it, we did have some fencing that was blown over during the hurricane around the tennis courts. And we'd only put that fencing up during the stay-at-home orders, during when the COVID-19 first happened, and there was these stay-at-home mandates. So we put the fencing up to discourage people from playing there. The fence has really become problematic as well. So we're just going to take that down and clean up the area the way it was, post signs that said that will say the courts are not for play, and if people opt to play, that's on them. But this is kind of just an informational topic, and we're happy to answer questions. Melissa's still here on the phone and can answer any questions you have about some of the ongoing issues, or any recommendations or things that you want to see happen out there, aside from just getting approval and being able to build a golf course and not have.
I'm curious, does the city have anti-dumping ordinances, and how enforceable are they?
I'm sure they have anti-dumping ordinances. That's why I asked for the signage and if they had any issues at any of their other properties. I did ask that question today of them.
Okay, and maybe we can look into what the city fines are for dumping and post those?
Madam Chair, I'd
plan-
recommend let Brianne and team work through the issues, focus on the communication with the homeowners associations out there. If you need to put signs up that the city, that can enforce. And I think working with the city staff to, identify the dumpers, then you'll eventually, track it. But it's our duty to make sure if we're putting fences up, they're either up or they're down. And it sounds like the good idea, just take them down and be done with that. I'm anxious for us to get started on the golf course like everyone. So let's do our part, and you go ahead and manage it as you see fit with the city.
I think Craig has the right idea. I would support that as well.
Okay.
Leanne, in the letter to the HOAs, though, I would encourage the residents not to confront the people who are dumping them. You don't know if somebody's going to get, angry or anything. Maybe take a picture or something, but don't confront these people and don't try to get in their face about this. Let the code enforcement people take care of it.
Okay, that was really just the information that I had for that.
Okay. Let's move on to the approval of the payroll and invoices found on page 49. Mr. Ernst?
Hold on, let me get to that page. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion for approval for payroll and invoices. Oops, just gotta get there it is. I don't think I have it on, that's kind of the page number on the report though, Brianne?
49.
49, okay, there we go. I thought you said 39.
Sorry.
Oh, it's in really small print too. Now we got
It
a deeper problem. Is that,
Get your
I'm
glasses.
gonna, get my glasses. That's a good starting point. See if I can read that. I can. The amount is, I recommend a motion for approval for $2,411,254.38. And that includes the March O&M invoice to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think Commissioner Wright weighed in first. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, Madam Chairman, just have one question. This is the O&M for March, and we're in the month of, just started August. Are we behind a little bit because of the COVID as far as getting these O&M reports? And if not, when will we start to get caught up? I'm just wondering, last year we had a nice little bonus monies coming back to us that wasn't spent. I'm just curious as to what our progress is year to date. And we may not be able to know that since we're still in March, but I'd like to know, the status of the remaining months as to when we might be caught up on that. And that's something you can, Brianne, you can find out for me.
We actually have all the invoices from the city currently, but we are working through some issues and some just getting some things answered on some of those invoices. That's why it's taken a little bit longer, but they've issued all of them, and we are on schedule. We won't know it until September is finalized, obviously, if we have anything left, but we're on track and under.
So I'm encouraged with the fact that you're doing your due diligence, and if that's what's holding it up, so it means we haven't paid them, as we had some questions about some of the invoices, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. It's now time for our reports and discussion items. The Executive Director Harms will start us off.
Well, I was going to talk about pickleball, but that's been solved. So we're set there. I want to thank Jason Hester and the community center staff for lending him to us tonight. He's here helping and learning how we do our technical setups in the event that we need a backup person, because we're obviously a very small staff of 3 should one of us not be able to make it in for this. Future agenda, just talking about the budget and the O&M and finalizing those numbers. And the fencing at the golf course, I updated you on as well. So those are my items.
Great,
Madam
thank you.
Chairman.
Yes.
Question for Brianne. You know, Mr. DeCate asked some questions regarding our plans, and it didn't sound like he knew about our phased approach to this. Brianne, if you might want to take a moment to go over where we are as far as developing. It sounded like you didn't think we were going to be doing anything for 5 years, and the way it sounded to me, and that's not the case at all.
No, it's definitely not the case. Thank you, Commissioner Rollins. When we originally, in January, before the pandemic hit, we had a 5-year phased plan for the golf course, which really had people playing golf within, the 18 holes would be done within 2 years. And then the rest of the project, which was basically ending with the tunnel in the final year, 4 years we had it done. Is it still likely that we can get it all done in 4 years? We may have to look at changing and amending some of the design and just revising the scope as we go along to get it done. But with the budget we put together, we're still working on it and committing funds. Now, we only approve budgets 1 year at a time, but we still have that phase plan in mind to get it done. Like you guys just committed $5 million to next year. I think the following year, I think we had $3 million set aside, and I think we would be on track to do those things, even at the rollback rate, and even in our current conditions. And obviously, the sooner we get approval, the sooner we can go out to bid. Things go up the longer we wait. We saw with pipes and pumping 6 years ago, it was 1.6 and now it's 3.2. So when things take longer, the prices go up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Brianne.
Thank you, Rollins. District Council, Mr. Horowitz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, good evening. I do have just one item to update you on this evening. You may recall at your last board meeting, the board had asked our office to send a letter to the governor asking the governor to extend his order, which authorized virtual meetings under the current COVID situation. The prior order was set to expire July 31st. I'm pleased to report the governor heeded your call and last Thursday entered another executive order, Executive Order 20-179, which further extends the virtual meeting option through the month of September. So the order is now set to expire on, through the month of August. It's now set to expire on September 1st. There's a separate provision of the order which allows for trim and budget hearings to continue virtually through October 15th. So I know we have our budget hearings coming up in September. In the event that the governor does not extend the virtual order option further, our regular board meetings would need to be held as regular in-person meetings. But under the current order, the budget hearings and our trim mandated hearings can be conducted virtually through October 15th. So we do have a little flexibility, at least through the month of September, and then through the month of August, then into September for our budget hearings. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that. But that is the only item I have to report on this evening. Although I will also just add that we're working with Brianne and her staff to notify the property appraiser's office to ensure that our trim notice has the required date, time, place, location information for our budget hearings in September. So all of that will be properly included. And when you get your trim notice, you'll see all of the access information for the budget hearings in September. So that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Horowitz. Commissioners, let's start with Commissioner Ernst.
Yes, Madam Chair, just real briefly, I've been working with Brianne and a little bit with Merv on our budget. And I would tell you that, Brianne is all over it. So I really appreciate the good work that she has done with the city and the, looking at our district and the city staff of where it can be narrowed down. As we get through this budget, I just keep in mind for everyone, we really want to be extra cautious with our financial commitments for next year, assuming that we do have the same revenue base for this year. We just don't know. And we know that COVID has taken a great personal toll on many people. So we have to enter any agreements that we do with a very firm commitment. It also requires us to look very carefully at our budget items. And so Brianne and I spoke a little bit about insurance. And so I hope that Mr. Rollins can just take another review of our insurance, if that means possibly raising deductibles or looking at anything that could lower the overall costs. It would be very beneficial. But that goes for everything in our district line items. We have to look extra careful this year on everything. And Brianne is in the process of doing that. So I thank her and the staff for the work they've done on it. It's still a year away, but we're doing all the heavy lifting now. Thank you.
All set? Okay, thank you. Good ideas. Commissioner Engel?
I just want to express my satisfaction with the approval of the RFP that was put in by Messrs. Perez and Nate. And I'm using their names because I can't remember the name of their company, so you have to excuse me. I'm looking forward to next week when we can get feedback from our public. And I'm looking forward to a speedy completion of the project so it can be, Ocean Strand can finally be opened up to the public. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Commissioner Rollins?
Yeah, I appreciate Craig bringing up my favorite subject, and that's insurance. Madam Chairman, I'll be happy to take another look with the insurance program, but I just will make a comment that this has probably been the most difficult year of pricing for commercial insurance, both liability and especially property insurance. The insurance companies, I'm seeing on the average about a 20% increase on both property and liability issues. But I'll be delighted to take another look at the insurance and see if there's some way that we can squeeze out another nickel or dime out of that insurance, because it's all going to go toward recreation if we do. And hopefully I can find something that might allow that to be possible. I have no other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Commissioner Wright?
I just wanted to say what a great job Brianna is doing with the budget. How, you know, she trimmed the city's budget, what, like $600,000 that we'll be able to keep. So I just wanted to say what a great job she's done. And that's it.
Thank you.
Always good to get kudos, right?
I texted Brianne yesterday and I said, let's divide and conquer and go look at all the parks and make sure there wasn't any damage. She was all over it. Everything she and Melissa had already done everything on Sunday just to make sure everybody was safe. And I want to thank our staff, all of our staff. Joanne's working hard on all the trim notices, and our district council's really helping us out in every way that possible. So I just want to express our appreciation, and I look forward to the public input next week on the 11th so that we can get this project moving at Ocean Strand. Brianne, what are our future agenda items other than the O&M for the budget?
We have the budget. We have we've talked in the past about a communications policy. We also have the foundation and laying the groundwork for that, and we have that was the communication policy with the staff. That was another item.
Okay. All righty. Sounds good. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
And a
Motion
second?
to adjourn.
Second.
Joanne, a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Ernst?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Meeting
Thank you,
adjourned.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody be safe.
Stay dry.